morning. As you can see, the van is still a mess. I am still dealing with the fan, but that's not what I want to talk about today. So I've gotten 3 different cards for the fan, which none of them work. And they all look like identical cards to me. They swear that the last one I got is the upgraded card, and it still doesn't work. But in the process, I posted on Reddit if anyone had similar issues, and a couple of people said that my battery outputting only 12.2 volts is low. It should be putting out much more than that. So I've got to reach out to Goal Zero and figure out if there is also something wrong with my Goal Zero. But in the process, I ran power directly from the 12 volt port on my van with the van running, which was putting out 14 volts, and the fan did the exact same thing. So the fan is a piece of junk. I have a plan. That'll be another video. Right now I want to talk about buying a boat, demoing a boat. Actually, I've already talked about demoing a boat. Let's put a link to that up here. If you're at the point where you're demoing boats, this is what you should be doing when you get into a new boat. But I want to talk about buying a boat because I'm in the process of selling my green boat, which is the boat that I use for students. As I deal with people that are boat shopping, I realize that people don't know how to boat shop. They don't know the questions to ask. They don't really know what they're looking at, and they don't know what they want to do. And these are problems. And so I do a quarterly newsletter for people that have paddled with me. And if you want to be on that list, reach out to me, brett@adventureotaku.com. I'm happy to add you to that list. It's a little tiny group. It's like 50 people. I manage the list manually, so it's not like crazy spam. It's once a quarter, once every 3 months. So I included this and realized that it was a good topic, and I want to talk about it in a video. And so here are 3 things to think about when you're shopping for a boat. The first is a good rule, which is hard to do. Paddle as many boats as you can. I paddled boats for years before I was ready to buy a boat. Most people don't have that kind of time. At the time, I lived in Manhattan, and so I couldn't really store a boat effectively. So it was a good way for me to build experience, was to rent a lot of boats and paddle a bunch of different boats. But paddle boats, you get an idea for what they feel like. Without building that sort of level of experience in a bunch of different boats, you don't know what you're comparing. You're comparing apples to oranges, essentially. And even now, if a friend of mine gets a new boat, I ask them if I can paddle it, because I want to feel what different boats feel like. So paddle a lot of boats is rule number 1. Rule number 2, do not post on Facebook on a group. Like I am in an adventure canoe and kayak group and a backpacking group, and I regularly see people post, hey, I'm shopping for a new kayak, or hey, I'm shopping for a new backpack, in the backpacking group, obviously. What's a good backpack? This is a complete waste of time, because all people do is post their backpack is the best backpack, and that's the backpack you should have. Or their kayak is the best kayak, that's the kayak that you should have. I think there's some like psychological thing going on here where people have to sort of reiterate in their own head that the gear that they have bought is a good piece of gear and they didn't make a mistake. But they're recommending things that don't suit that person's needs. They're just saying, well, this is what I use and this is great, so you should get the same thing. Do not post anything on Facebook that you're shopping for a boat. It is a complete waste of time. You are not getting usable information. Number 3 is super important. I love this rule. Don't buy your boat based on what you're doing right now. Think about what you want to do in that boat. Where do you want to be with that boat in 2 years? Buy a boat based on where you want to be in 2 years. If your goal is to go kayak camping, if your goal is to go kayak fishing, if your goal is to run rivers, if your goal is to run rivers and do some camping on the rivers, that's 4 different boats. So if you buy a boat for sit on top fishing, you're not going to have a very good time kayak camping on rivers. Now, I'm not saying you should have 4 different boats. I'm saying figure out what you want to do, what your goal is, and work towards it. Too frequently, I see people who are like, I want to go kayak camping, and I have a 9-foot recreational kayak. Well, that's just not going to work. It's just not. And so think about where you want to be and buy that boat for what you want to do. Also, your new boat should scare you a little. It should be a little tippier than you think it should. It should be a little faster than you think it should. All those things. It should scare you a little. Your comfort level with that boat will grow very quickly as you get used to that boat. So those are 3 things to think about. Paddle a lot of boats. Don't post any questions on Facebook. Ask your friends, right? Oh, and on the paddle a lot of boats, if you can't find the boat to paddle that's like the boat you want, ask around. If someone's got that boat, I bet that they will let you test paddle that boat. When I got my first Delta, I was at a trade show in Charleston, South Carolina, and I found a guy who had taken delivery of a Delta 17 that day. He let me paddle it, and I ended up buying that boat. Paddlers are generally pretty nice. Ask them, and they'll let you paddle their boat, because they're proud of their boat. They love their boat. And that's why on Facebook, they tell you to buy their boat, because it, reiterates that they love their boat, and it's a great boat. I got to clean up this mess. In 2 weeks, we hit the road. I still don't have a working vent fan. I may have a problem with my GoPro. I've got a couple fuses to replace. I got a lot to do. I'll see you outside.